The March 18 work session of the Williamsburg City Council will come to order. Ms. Burcham, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Maslin?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey?
Here.
Mayor Freiling?
Here.
Vice Mayor Pons?
Here.
Mr. Zhang?
Here.
We have before us tonight several budget presentations, this first of which is Human Services. Mr. Trivett, would you like to introduce this, or should I kick it over to Mr. Walentisch?
I think Mr. Walentisch is going to introduce the speakers. Basically, you know, our budget process divides up outside agencies into a couple different categories. One of them is handled by the Human Services Department, that has a committee that reviews requests and makes a recommendation to City Council for inclusion in your budget. Prior to their review, I provide any guidance that I might like to, and so this year I did ask them to consider flat funding all the agencies that had submitted. Mr. Walentisch?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, in the interest of time, I'd like to introduce the two members who were able to come today, even though all 5 members participated in these budget reviews during the month of January. It's Ms. Susan Gennaro, who will speak first, followed by Ms. Susan Karen. We call them Susan 1 and Susan 2. They'll be doing the presentation.
Good afternoon, Susan 1.
Good afternoon, Mayor Freiling and City Council members. On behalf of the Social Service Advisory Board, once again, we're pleased to represent our board in making the fiscal year 2019-2020 partner agency funding recommendations to you. We received the agency funding application packets in January and reviewed them, keeping in mind the following questions. Does the agency provide both necessary and direct services to city residents? Are the services non-duplicative and cost-effective? Are the services provided by the agency prompt, accessible, and affordable, with no one being denied due to inability to pay? Is the amount of funding the city provides proportionate to the amount neighboring localities provide relative to the percentage of citizens served by the city and other localities? And lastly, does the agency work closely and network services with the city human services staff? And for those categories that we reviewed, in the current fiscal year, there are 13 agencies in the health and human services area who receive funding from the city totaling $432,945. And please note that also on our list is the Peninsula Commission on Homelessness, which constitutes a joint exercise of powers among 6 peninsula localities, of which Mr. Walentisch is the vice chair. Of the presently funded agencies, new requests for fiscal year 2020 totaled $488,312, which included a new agency request by the Williamsburg House of Mercy for $5,000. The overall increase in funding requests by these agencies was $55,367. One current nonprofit did not reapply, and this was 3E Restoration, a faith-based nonprofit organization. And for the rest of our report, Susan 2 will do the presentation.
Because the advisory board was acutely aware of the city's projects and financial constraints in the upcoming year, board members chose to defer the largest increased requests on the part of the 2 health-based agencies, Colonial Behavioral Health, an $18,000 increase, and Old Town Medical and Dental Center, a $20,000 increase, to the city manager's proposed budget. This was in part due to the fact that both the health and behavioral health agencies, while being 501c3 nonprofit agencies, they're also quasi-governmental in nature, with fiscal ties to both York and James City counties. We as citizens and city representatives also feel that our core departments in the city should be adequately funded. Since our core city departments have to deal with fiscal constraints and realities, the partner agencies share that burden as well. We did recommend small increases that were requested for Hospice House in the amount of $500 and Peninsula Agency on Aging in the amount of $705. And since 3E Restoration, which serves homeless individuals and families, did not reapply, we recommend that the Williamsburg House of Mercy on Richmond Road, which works very closely with the department and its outreach efforts, be awarded that $1,000 since it is a high-priority service area. As a result, this year, the net increase in our recommendations was only $1,205. If you have any questions, Mr. Walentisch is available to answer them. Once again, we thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Thank you very much. Come back to my colleagues for comments and questions.
I don't have any questions. This is quite an extensive list of partner agencies in the community that do a lot of good and serve a lot of people, and for that I'm very thankful that they're here, but also thankful that you all had taken the time to look at their request and make sure that they're compliant and to get to a point where you make this presentation. So I don't have any questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much for presenting, and thank you for your due diligence in ensuring that we have a diligent budget in consideration for the city manager's proposed budget. I had a quick question, though. In their remarks, they had mentioned that if we had considered increases for any of the two healthcare organizations, that would have to compete with what I'm presuming is the staff budget with the department. So can you explain a little bit about that? Because I'm assuming that all the money comes within this pot of money.
Sure. So essentially, I think what they were saying is if you award more money to an agency on this list, then it's money that has to be found somewhere else in the budget. And in order to do that, we would need to look at the other core funded portions of the budget, such as, the fire department, the police department, city manager's office, that list of other departmental needs. So it's about, if you decide that you want to give some here, you have to take it from over there.
Right. And obviously that presents a difficult question because we want to ensure that we provide quality resources to our staff members and not want to take that away, while recognizing that we have organizations that benefit greatly to our community, whether providing quality health care to folks who may not be able to afford it, or important mental services to folks that may need it. Obviously, these are two very big issues that we confront in society today, and we want to make sure we provide adequate funding for that. Based on the recommendations here today, though, this will go into your proposed budget, and then later on we'll consider it before the City Council adopts the budget, correct?
Yes, absolutely, that is correct.
There's no necessarily final decision, even with the acceptance of this.
No, your final decision is adoption in May. What I would suggest, though, that is if you feel compelled to change a recommendation, best to discuss it now, so that if there is the ability for us to make that change, we can do it now, which would be a lot easier than making it in April or May.
Okay, understood. Just wanted to send out an appreciation to the committee for considering a funding increase for the Peninsula Agency on Aging. When Mr. Mann had visited and presented on the agency, it was a very compelling presentation to the council, but also I believe one of the board members, Dr. Whitley, had spoken of a compelling need for us to consider an increase for the Peninsula on Aging. So we appreciate that the board had considered that request as well. And obviously, all agencies speak to a very important need at various points in our community. So thank you.
Thank you on my behalf as well. And as I understand it, just sort of piggyback on what Mr. Zhang was saying, for CBH and for Old Town, it's not that we will not consider them, it's just that since their requests were substantially higher than $1,000 or $2,000, that was the main reason they were deferred to the city manager's office, because of the hikes increase. And I do thank you all for considering House of Mercy. I think that they do they fill a valuable need, and being right here in the city of Williamsburg, I think it's good that they were included. So thank you for that and all the other review work that you did.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. If we consider, raising any of these contributions, could we do it in something like a supplemental category so that, each year we don't, raise the base? Each year we might have a supplemental pot of money that we could be giving to what we think that year really the need is.
So the answer to that is yes, of course you can, but that's really the service that the Human Services Advisory Board provides you with. So basically what you do is you give them the authority to review the applications and decide based on their review, their knowledge of the service provider, whether or not that requested amount is warranted. Mr. Walentisch, do you want to share any more on that?
Sure, and I'll only go with the historical perspective, understanding that any council can change that at any point in time. But in the past, the initial council that asked us many years ago wanted a methodology that was somewhat scientific whether it warranted any kind of increase based on the facts, on the number of people served, the priority of the need, et cetera, et cetera. Keeping in mind that this year we had a robust discussion among the 5 citizens here about they follow what all the projects are and the needs that the departments have, and they didn't want to be out of step with where you and the city manager's office and the budgets that you're looking at. So basically, they didn't want to make recommendations in a vacuum, knowing how tight everything's going to be this year. I think everybody recognizes that. But also understanding that unless this changes, that council monies here were not seen as a right to any agency, but effectively as a recognition of a job well done, and that their organization is well run, and that they serve, as you said, Mr. Zhang, some higher priority needs. And there's an order of priority here. Health is clearly more important than some of the other services. So I think in my relationship with the agencies, and I represent us on a number of those boards, they do understand that there's no, from year to year, or in any budget, that no city council or local government has an obligation to give them monies. And again, unless that changes, that's been the case until now.
Yeah, I think it's more of an issue of optics. It's like we don't want to be seen taking away money, like if next year we didn't want to fund the supplemental layer.
I think your point is very well taken. Because if you're simply looking at this as building the base that you have to provide, when you have a tighter budget year, you have to look at everything, including these agencies, and that's what Ms. Karen was saying as well.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to the committee for all of their work. Really appreciate it. We're not in a position to have the expertise or nearly the time to devote to this that you all do. And so your careful evaluation of each request and then determination of where, if anywhere, we can make adjustments to help provide additional funding is incredibly helpful to us and to the city. To follow up on Mr. Zhang and Mr. Maslin's comments, and also something Ms. Ramsey said, I too am pleased to see House of Mercy in this group, because I think they provide an incredible service for this community, as do all these other agencies and organizations. Rather than us here suggest if we wanted to see amendments to this list, I would ask the city manager to work with the Human Services Director to see if things ease up a little bit as we get closer to the end of the year. They could tighten up, we know that, but if in some ways there's a little more room to work, I would love to hear Mr. Walentisch and the committee's recommendations of where $1,000 or $2,000 more or up to $5,000, whatever the number is, could make a really big difference for some of these groups. And I'm not belittling Colonial Behavioral Health and Old Town Medical simply because they already receive comparatively larger amounts of money. But for some of these, an additional $1,000 could really make a big difference. So if you could have that available for our consideration, should the budget seem to offer a little more flexibility as we get closer to the end of the year and we understand what the final revenue and expense numbers are going to be like, and then help inform our projections for next year, that would be, I think, an advisable course.
Certainly.
Mr. Mayor, if I may add, that was exactly what the advisory board was thinking as well
I commend them for their wisdom.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Any other comments or questions?
I was just more curious, if they had to take funds from the department, Mr. City Manager, where would the cuts come from?
Well, let me present it to you in a different way because it's.
Can I add something before you say that?
Sure.
We need to keep in mind, we've got a significant pressure from the school system this year. Their budget is going up significantly. We're contractually bound by James City County to meet that. And we've also directed the city to beef up our fire and EMS staffs, which is going to place additional operational pressure. And we've identified that already as a priority. So I'm not trying to answer the question for them. It's just, it's helpful for the public to know that we have these other investments that we need to make, and so.
And then that's essentially what I was going to say. What we're trying to do, if you remember from the budget retreat, I showed you a slide that presented things that were identified as needs that were not in the budget as we've created it so far. They're still not in the budget. The two first things on the list were 4 additional positions in the fire department, 4 additional positions in the police department. Our thought is that we will tackle those needs, those 2 specific needs, at the midpoint of the year, the fiscal year, so December of 19. And at that point in the year, we will have a much greater degree of certainty as to how the budget's going to perform, particularly as it relates to real estate tax collection. And so we should be able to make adjustments there. Everything that we do now to increase the operating need will decrease our ability to fund those positions when we get to the midpoint. And so rather than look at it as an exercise of what will be cut from an existing departmental budget, it's probably more appropriate to look at it as hurting our chances of success of being able to fund those positions when we get to the midpoint of the fiscal year. Okay. Now, that being said, $5,000, $10,000 is not an enormous number. So, you sort of have to keep it all in context.
Right.
I don't think it's an impossible ask for us to go back and be prepared as you consider your budget, what you could do to beef up some of these lines. That being said, some of the requests, particularly from Colonial Behavioral Health and Old Town, are fairly significant. So I don't think there's a scenario where we'll be able to provide enough additional funding to hit those targets. The question that we would be asking Human Services and their advisory committee would be, what number is sufficient enough to make a dent in the rationale for that request, right, if that makes sense?
Well, the reason why I asked the question was not pointed in jest in terms of, just saying what will we cut. The question was more because we had spoken about, saying that this will take away from the department or maybe some other services ability to continue providing that quality of services. For me, putting such abstract notions is hard because we could say that we can cut something and, like the mayor suggested, it might go to something, but I didn't know if there was a particular position in mind that you had envisioned that, or some line item that it would have taken away from, let's say, the Human Services and Health Department. Obviously, let's say, using your numbers, with $10,000, if it took away a part-time position, obviously none of us would want to do that. I don't think the advisory committee would even suggest that. So I was just trying to get a more concrete idea as we're talking about these budget talks about what does that exactly mean, because, we could throw that all out, but I want to know where specifically on the line item that's going to be coming from.
Sure.
Where do we sacrifice? What's the takeaway? So
it
was just a very simple question to see where it will all come to, and that doesn't mean to suggest that it takes away from what the advisory committee has aptly and taken their time and conducted with due diligence with providing these recommendations. But I just wanted to parse out that remark a little bit further. So.
Sure. No, I understand. And if we were in a budget situation that was that tight, we would absolutely be able to tell you this is what we would need to reduce in order to fund this request on this side.
Right.
We're fortunate this year that we're not in that situation. There are 2 sources of revenue that I think we can count on moving into the fiscal year to provide us some additional breathing room. The first one I've already illustrated is the real estate tax rate. We're expecting the assessments to come in about 6%. That's what we advertised. We won't know for sure until we get to the midpoint of the year. But even before we get to the midpoint of the year, we learned last week that James City County is not going to fund the school division at 100% of their request. Now, that is good news for the city of Williamsburg because my budget is based on funding that at 100% of their request. So that could result, if it's approved by the county, and we won't know that till much later in the budget cycle, it could represent about $100,000 worth of additional savings in our existing budget. Now, I was saying earlier before we started the meeting that I don't want to come to you with a proposed budget that matches what James City County announced at the budget meeting last week, because then we could paint ourselves into a scenario where we don't have enough in the budget, and that's a much less enjoyable situation. So I'd much rather go into it, at least at this point, with that in there. When James City County approves their budget with a final number, then we would be in a position to adjust what we're going to do in terms of that savings that we might realize.
It's very wise to keep it flexible that way.
And I think we all agree that we want to do whatever we can to position the city to be able to supplement our public safety forces at some point in the coming year because they need it.
There's two things that Ms. Dameron and I are trying to accomplish with this budget. And this will be in my budget message. Number one is that we reach the midpoint of the year and have enough flexibility after tax collections to fund some additional positions. I'm not going to say how many in both fire and the police department because they both need it. And I think we've all recognized that need. The other thing that we hope to accomplish, which we think is equally as important, is building up the end of the year surplus amount, which contributes to fund balance. In these years where we have some extra funding, it's equally important to make sure that we're building that reserve for the years that we don't. And you never know when they will be back.
Okay, thank you again. This takes us to the Arts Commission presentation. Ms. Smith, no?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it is my honor to introduce Susan Branch-Smith, who is the chairman of our Williamsburg Area Arts Commission. This group of volunteers works very hard to identify and support arts organizations in Williamsburg and surrounding areas to ensure the continued strength of our diverse, robust artistic community that is integral to the city's culture.
Thank you. Dare I say welcome, Susan 3?
I thought she was going to say that, but it didn't come out that way. Thanks for having us today. I really appreciate it. Mayor Freiling and council members, I'd like to introduce our commissioners, some of whom aren't here today due to illness and a couple of commitments, but we have the four from the city of Williamsburg, me, Vice Chair Pat Rubline, you guys can hold your hand up. Recording Secretary Sally Wolf is not here today, and Barbara Vollmer. We have four members from James City County: Nick Vratos, Paige Bishop, Georgiana Avioli, and Robin Phillips. Our ninth member is from York County, Charles Nurenberger. Each commissioner is assigned to several local arts organizations. We establish a relationship with them, we attend to performances and events, and we report back to the commission. This past year, we also offered a marketing workshop for the first time, Ideas on Fire, featuring speakers from the Virginia Commission for the Arts and Old Dominion University. It was attended by about 50 people. We believe that our arts community provides excellent programming, but that some organizations are often less skilled at filling seats, and so that was the intent of this workshop. We received good feedback and have seen results at performances. Our commissioners all volunteered on this and helped coordinate it with Pat Rubline as committee lead. Our commissioners have also spent time coaching arts organizations on our submission requirements and encouraging them to apply to the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission. We also routinely provide our organizations with other arts funding options, for example, the Virginia Commission for the Arts and the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation. It's been somewhat of a challenging year for the commission itself. We filled 3 seats this year, 1 city and 2 county, in addition to 2 new commissioners the previous year, and 2 of us will be cycling off in June. So we're going to have a very young but very dedicated commission. Because so many of our commissioners are new, we spent a lot of time discussing protocol and procedure. some of which had never been written down before. You'll be happy to know that we're now writing down more of our procedures, and there will be more work on this in the coming months. We've also set up online archives of our files so that for the first time in history, we know where everything is. We've also spent a considerable amount of time figuring out how to coordinate with the city and county's new tourism fund. Because tourism funding is now being provided to some of the same organizations that we're granting to, we're trying to understand how to grant going forward. An occasion for the arts is a good example. Do we continue funding at the same level, or perhaps do we only fund local portions of that particular event? We know this is a work in progress, and any direction you can give us in the future is going to be very helpful. So, how did granting turn out? We ended up with 30 applications, down slightly from the previous year, as several organizations either folded or went on hiatus. Requests totaled $200,825, on a par with the year before. We trimmed this by 30% to get our books to balance. We'd like to request that the city and your counterparts in James City County provide level, if not improved, funding as we requested here in the fall. I'd like to thank Council for your continued support of the arts in and around Williamsburg, and I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners for their hard work and dedication. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you, Ms. Number 3.
It's a good place to be.
Right. Well, you know, again, I certainly appreciate the work that you and the committee have done, and I know you and I have spoken over the fence.
Over the fence.
And you all have done a lot of work this year, kind of organizing, you know, as you say, putting stuff in a database. It's, you know, it's easily accessible, and so you understand better the processes, and then the applicants can also better understand this process. And so I know that took a lot of time, so I appreciate all your efforts to kind of lead us through that. And again, I know in looking at the budget to see that you've had much more requests than you typically fund. I think it looks like you got $200 and some odd thousand in requests.
Actually, it's a little less than the year before, just a little.
Yeah, but, well, that's what you're asking for, right? 150?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking at the letter, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, didn't you receive, maybe I'm, anyways.
We're asking you basically for level funding.
Yeah. So you had to parse out some of those and work them down a little bit and say no to some folks, or ultimately have to say this is all you're going to get. So, and I know that's challenging. It's not always easy to say no to people and their requests, because a lot of them are good you know, organizations with a lot of merit. So looking in just one of them, for example, I think it was number 6, small amount of money, $450, but the activity seems to be, and this is the Chesapeake Bay Wind Ensemble. They're hosting events at the Ferguson Center. So what's the connectivity, and how did you all justify or come up with a recommendation to support, you know, something down there?
Do we have our representative for it? Nick, do you want to speak to that?
Thanks, Nick.
Question again, please.
Well, so, you know, this is the Williamsburg Arts Commission, and we're funding, you know, stuff that we would think be in this region, but this is at the Ferguson Center.
You're just taking me back a few minutes. A little rusty.
And that's why they didn't get what they asked for, but they do things in the area, and so we felt an obligation to throw a few dollars their way to acknowledge them, but by no means support them. And that's basically the rationale behind it. You know, anyone that'll come. In fact, we have people coming from outside the area that are not based here, and they'll do something in Williamsburg, James City County, and we fund them pretty heavily to support the activity and to continue it, because we found that some organizations just need help just to continue doing what they do, but we try not to fund enough where they lose their commitment to perform. So we try to find that balance there.
And that's perfectly acceptable. I just wanted to kind of ask about that. One of the things I see
I
in
could
here
have brought my big notebook.
and don't do that. But you talk about all the different youth, adults, and others that you serve, and I think having that running total really amplifies kind of what you're doing and trying to touch the community, and particularly the kids in the Williamsburg James City County school system. So I applaud you for that effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We also try to keep them from being, as I mentioned, reliant just on us. A lot of them used to be, and I'm really pleased that over the last few years we've gotten a lot of them to apply for grants other places.
Thank you very much for being here. It's surprising because you're his neighbor, so I figured that you'd be his number one, Susan. But I mean, we'll just leave that up for in the air. Thank you.
Some days.
Thank you to you and for members of the board, the commission, being here today and presenting as always. Always incredible to see the amount of work and due diligence, just like with the Human Services Advisory Board, in conducting the funding level requests for different organizations. Although something tells me a little bit that perhaps the prior agenda items is going to be a little bit more contentious than this particular budget. But this, I think, illustrates again just the consistent, well done work that you've done, and we appreciate all you've done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan, for the information. And my question is similar to Doug's as far as local versus out of town, and one that I noticed, I think this was a very, very small chart, so sure. I'm trying to get back to the one, I think it was the Virginia Opera Association, and it said funds would support 6 in-school performances and then provide distribution of tickets to students for a Norfolk student night at the opera. And I'm just wondering, do students go on their own to these operas, or, I mean, just thinking of myself, I'm just wondering if I was given a free ticket to the opera or all of them, would I actually get in my car and drive to Norfolk or Richmond?
You'd be surprised how many people show up on student night, which is 2 nights ahead of their formal opening night for an opera. Like Romeo and Juliet last year, I went to a student night of that, and it was packed, and they were totally enthralled because it was something, they knew the story. So I'd say the answer is it varies. I saw a lot of parents there, but I saw a lot large groups, and I think buses outside. So some people, like Jamestown High School, arranged for a bus. I'm not sure it was that night, but another student night. You see a lot of buses there on student night.
Well, and that's what I was wondering, if there was transportation provided to sort of encourage, the students to go to some of these events that are outside of Williamsburg, since the funding request comes from an agency outside of Williamsburg and the event is held there. And
so one of their missions is, in the last few years, is to have the youngest audience of any opera in America. So they've really worked on that with having the performances at the library and in elementary schools. So we'll see.
Well, and I noticed too that a lot of events are held here at the Williamsburg Regional Library. So it's nice that different organizations are taking advantage of the space to do that. And then for the the Virginia Arts Festival, that is for their educational sort of outreach, I believe, because I know we tend to get a request from them for their event held here in the summer, but as I understand it, these are 2 different sort of components, where one is more educational and then the other is will be for the Williamsburg live performance.
As is often the case, yeah. I mean, lots of these, about a third, I'd say, to almost maybe 40% are for the schools, for local elementary and high schools.
And then the attendance numbers are from 2018, I assume, 2018?
We tried to update them as best we could from the final reports, but we were a little bit challenged this year to get all that done. So some of them might have been estimates from a previous year. But yeah, pretty close.
Pretty close. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just, if I may, first of all, I'd like to thank you and everybody. Skip it over, Ted. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ted.
Thanks. So 2 questions. Number one, in terms of the overall funding pot available out there to the arts community, you talked about some organizations that aren't requesting. Is there a change? Are you seeing more organizations funding, less organizations funding?
Are we seeing more organizations coming to us or fewer organizations?
No, in terms of the organizations that you follow, in terms of sources they can go to for funding in addition to us. Are you seeing any change in the landscape there?
Yes, I think that the Virginia Arts Commission has done very well they have a broad range of grants available to people, not just to 501c3s, which is our mission, but also to individuals. So there are in some cases where people just come to us once a year. They can go to the Virginia Arts Commission and maybe here within 2 weeks sometimes, or a month, you know. So yeah, I think there are a lot of options around, and I think people maybe should learn to tap some other sources as well, including business. And we haven't seen much of that, but some. You know, our larger organizations go to business as well.
The second question is, in terms of the Muscarelli, I think just in terms of optics, when that description of the grant request, is that outdated information that maybe should not be in this year?
They did apply, and they did it. They had an incomplete application, so we really decided that we couldn't consider them. It was a last-minute request, and there wasn't enough data there, and as much as we wanted to help them, it didn't seem fair. We didn't have their budget. We didn't have a number of items from them.
Would it be helpful?
But they'll come back.
Would it be helpful to footnote that information so that we know?
We'll do that in the future, sure.
Thank you.
Can I go now? Okay. So thank you again. Thanks for the entire commission's efforts. We very much appreciate it, just like with the Human Services Commission. They're both about health. You know, the Human Services is about physical health, and the Arts Commission is about the cultural health of this community. Sure, one has a greater degree of urgency than the other, but they're both important if we really want to have a healthy, well-rounded community, particularly in exposing the youth of our community to some of these performances. I really appreciate the way you organize the information, where we've got information about what was requested, what's recommended, but also the plus or minus if things get tighter or things improve, about where we would have flexibility. And then the text that's given as a rationale or an explanation of the programs that are being funded by the particular grant, if it's awarded, is helpful. And if I may just say one thing about the Virginia Opera Association, and you were, I know, keeping your remarks short, but I don't want people at home to get the wrong impression about what that grant request is for. It's 6 in-school performances, age-appropriate opera education in our schools, 3 public performances at the Williamsburg Regional Library or an alternate local venue, and the distribution of those free tickets of 150 tickets at Jamestown, Lafayette, and War Hill High Schools for Norfolk Student Night or Richmond Student Afternoon performances. So I didn't want people to get the impression we were funding Norfolk students going to Student Night.
Sorry.
As much as they might be deserving, I'd rather see our local high schools go.
And that it's far more expansive than just tickets for the performances.
One thing you might explore is if there's a way to track those tickets and whether or not, if they give you a certain block of numbers, and then see how many of those are physically redeemed the night of the performance or the afternoon in Richmond's case. It might just give you some more information next year about, to Ms. Ramsey's point about, are we sure they're all going and taking advantage of this? And maybe they have another way of tracking that, but it's just a thought.
Okay, sure.
And again, thank you so much for all that you have done to take the burden off council and city staff in determining how best to fund these very many important organizations. Do we have any more questions or comments? Okay, thank you. This takes us to the Tourism Fund. We're actually 40 seconds ahead of schedule. I don't think we've ever done that before. The first is the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance. Terry Banez.
While Ms. Banez is coming up, I wanted to just do a brief introduction on this topic. As I said when we started, the City Council's budget divides up outside agencies into a couple different categories. 3 are represented here today. This is a new category for the council, the Tourism Fund. And so what we've done with this year's outside agencies budget presentations is we've grouped them under that fund heading. As Ms. Banez comes forward, it's a little different this year for the Chamber and Tourism Alliance because Senate Bill 942 forced us to kind of consolidate our funding in the region for the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance into one pool. And it's affectionately referred to as the Maintenance of Effort Pool of Money. And so this year, rather than coming and making a case for the budget of the Business Council, Ms. Banez is simply going to provide a brief overview of what they've been up to and where they're going, because our funding of their operations are guaranteed and controlled by the state statutes.
Okay, great. Does somebody have my slides that I sent over? Clicker? So if I click, okay, thank you. So good afternoon, Mayor Filing and City Council members. Thank you for having me and allowing me to come give you an update. So real quick, I just want to remind everybody that we are, how the division is, so that if you look at the chart, it shows that we have an umbrella organization, the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance, and we did pass our new bylaws in December 20th, and then under that is the Business Council and the Tourism Council. The Tourism Council is working on their bylaws, and so are we. We expect to have those passed in the next month or so. Currently, the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance, this is the board of directors. I won't go over them one by one, but just so you can see who represents on our board. So right now, if you look at our business council as an update, how many members do we have? Right now, we have 585 businesses. We represent 57 nonprofits and 3 municipalities. We have a retention rate of 80%, which is over the national average. And I'm going to give you some more social media. We're really focused this year on digital. So if you look at our social media, right now we have over 3,000 followers on Facebook. On Instagram, we broke 1,000 as of yesterday. So we're really working on engagement, and we hope that all of you, I'll do an ask, is like us. We're under Williamsburg Biz or Williamsburg CC, and watch us. We're really trying to do some behind the businesses and a lot of new things to keep people engaged, so you want to see what's going on. And last year, this is really neat. If you look at our profile, so if you take a look at our page, the Business Council page, which is Williamsburg CC, we had, so I told you, we have 667 members, but we had 833,000 links, so click-throughs. So it's on each business. So if you look at that, that is a huge number that I triple-checked. So it's showing that people are going and looking at our page to see what businesses they want to use and what businesses are members of the chamber. So I think that's really important, and that's a huge call out for us that we can learn from and do more with, which I'll show you as we are going forward. I'm going to start showing you and being very transparent with our membership, where we are today, where we're going. And if you look in January and February, if you take both months together, we're up 33% with new members. We have 24 new members. And compared to last year, our renewals are flat. And then if you look at non-renewed members, so that is people that did not renew their membership, we had 11 in 2019, but for only $2,700 versus 2018, same time year to date, it was over $8,000. So you can see that I'm watching the trend, not only the month, but the trend to see what we're doing. So it looks like a really good story. People are renewing, and as well as we're getting a lot of good new members. So this is really exciting. Exciting for me, I hope exciting for you. So we have listened to what our community is telling us, and people want to grow their business. They want people to hear about it. They want to be seen. So this is a new membership benefit for all new members of the Business Council starting March 1st. So if you join the Business Council, and Mr. Zhang, thank you for always promoting us and the membership. We appreciate that. But this is something new you can promote for us. You will, if you go to a WI Daily landing page, it says who runs this business. They're going to add something new to us, and it's going to be who's a new member of the Business Council. So it will live on there for a week and then all year long. So you'll get to promote your business, and you will click on it, and it has a whole page. It tells about your business, who the owner is, and then also along with that, and it just moves down. So it's going to live there all year. And it will also on the Tide, if you're a new member, you get to support an hour of programming from the 5 to 8, which is their prime time. You'll get 3 call-outs per hour during a certain period for a week. So that's a $1,000 value that you get per new business that signs up. So I'm really excited about that. And then at WMBG, they're going to do a 5 to 7 minute interview. So with each new member that signs up, this is something that has never been tried here before. So I'm really excited to bring that to the table. I'm always going to tell you who our new members are, because I hope you'll go out and visit them and drop your card and tell them how excited you are that they're members of the Business Council. So I won't go over them, but these are our new members for January and February. So you can see it's across a lot of different genres, and we're excited for that. And then what's new? What are we doing next door that y'all need to know about that you want to be involved in? So we had Ascend and Yup have combined. That's 2 young professionals. That's the premium young professionals for Williamsburg. So Ascend was based in the chamber, and Yup is the young emerging professionals. And I'm excited to say that we have appointed our chair, who happens to be in the room tonight. Yuri Adams is leading the new Aspire group. And right now they have over 150 new members of young professionals. Lots going on. They're getting ready to do a big kickoff. So we're working to grow the leadership skills, to provide some social interaction, but more importantly, to keep our young leaders in our communities. And then the Women's Business Council, this is another very successful group that we're working with. That's our focus for this year. I just wanted to share with you, we had tables of 8 and had a lot of good representatives. They were tables at 8 different restaurants, so we supported them. We will double the restaurants the next time we host it. It sold out within a week, and we had an unknown speaker. So it was unknown women, are a unknown lady of leadership. Michelle DeWitt was gracious enough to lead, I would say happy, but I'll say gracious, was gracious enough to lead a table. And you only know who signs up. The people sign up based on the restaurant. So it's really interesting to see. You get a very diverse mix of people. You come in and get to meet 7 or 8. And we actually loaded some tables with 10. You get to come in and meet 7 new women and network with them. And it was just hugely successful for us. The feedback that we got is it allows them, a lot of them have book clubs or social clubs, but they didn't really have professional business places where they can meet other women and ask business questions. Well, what would you do in this situation? So I was lucky enough to attend 2 of them, and we had members join because of this, and people would tell us they want to re-engage in the Business Council. This will lead to a health forum and then a speaker series as well. So we're doing lots of exciting things with our Women's Business Council. And then February, our business after hours, I just want to call out and update you that we're becoming more engaged. What we heard is people like to stick together. So this is kind of a funny one. I think it's funny. We did human bingo. So what that means is you couldn't just talk to your group. You had to fill out your card, and whoever filled out their bingo card got a 2-night stay at the Great Wolf Lodge with a bunch of goodies. So we're trying to really, at the business after hours, shake it up a little bit, more fun things to do. We're having trivia night, so please come out and see what's going out there. So we've gotten really good feedback on that. So just telling you what we're doing new. Social media, we are so focused on this because it's such a low-cost way to get the message out to people of what we're doing and to give our businesses call-outs. So these are some grand openings. We're highlighting new businesses. We're highlighting current members. And I'm going to show you on the next page where you can see it's making a difference. So if you look at our Williamsburg CC webpage, is it exciting? Do you want to go check it out? Do you want to see what's going on in Williamsburg? I sure hope so. But because we've changed our demographic a little bit and doing some things different, the women's tables of 8, the young professionals, look at the Williamsburg.com website. We had 5,400 users during the month of February. And in that month, 5,000 of those were new, 5,061. So that's pretty phenomenal. So usually what it would be around 300. We had a lot of new engagement. So people were talking and clicking in. So 84% of the visitors were new. We had 17,000 page views. And I think it's just important to notice that once people start talking and engaging, we can see it on social media. So I would ask you to do the same. And I'll make sure that I share these with you when I give updates. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we're doing okay, but we're not having the huge success that we're having on the website, and that's something that we'll continue to work on to drive engagement. And I'm not sure if everybody knew our goals, but it's really, I'm just going to share these with you real quick. We want to make sure that the Business Council mission and value proposition is shared with the community. Why is it important for them to know about the Business Council? We hear over and over again, well, I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know I could come. I didn't know if I worked for the city of Williamsburg, I thought I had to join. I didn't know that I was automatically a member. Or so we want to really talk about that and get the word out that we're everybody's Business Council. We want you to be involved. And then, of course, we'll be an advocate with the legislative priorities. I talked to you about the new networking events. And then workforce development, Frank Arlotto leads our group and is doing a really good job on that. We'll continue. We hear you loud and clear that you need a stronger workforce, and we're working with that. I'm going to hold weekly meetings with all of our committee chairs, weekly, monthly. So every month we'll get together so they can hear not only, that's the one thing I think we're doing a lot of good things, but I think a lot of people need to know about it so we can get more people involved. And then just to continue to partner with Chris down at York County Chamber and Bob McKenna at Virginia Peninsula, and then of course across the water with Brian Stevens. And they are all very active and reaching out to everybody so we can all learn from each other what's working and what we do good. And then I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you very much for your support. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, Terry, first, congratulations. I know you stepped into the hornet's nest, so to speak, with the evolution of the organization.
I like it.
Well, and by all accounts, you're doing a fantastic job. And so I appreciate that the work that you're doing over there. I think it really is resonating into the community, and I think I'm excited because we really now have an organization that can focus on these things that you're talking about, and it kind of divides the confusion of, is it tourism, is it too much tourism, and so I think we've been able to eliminate what I think has been a challenge in getting members because of what is the organization. And so now the Business Council and the Tourism Council can work shoulder to shoulder, but act, laser focus on the activities that they are designed to do. And I think, you've really have stepped up and communicated that very well, and so I congratulate you on that. I'm looking forward to the future. You and I have spoken. I think we're heading with an organization that should be an organization of 2,000 members. I think that's doable. I don't know what your target is. Don't tell me.
I was going to say, I can't say my number because I want to share my number at the end of the year. But right now we're ahead of target, so that's good.
And I'm going to follow Benny's lead, and if there's anything I can do to help
Thank you.
get some members in there, I know my business is a member, and we're glad to do that and proud to be a member of the chamber. So we're excited about what you're going to bring for us in the future.
Thank you. I think the one thing you asked me, if, what can I do to help, I'm always going to respond to that. So we had 2 hotels just join us, which we're really excited about. So I think they're coming back, and we hear that, and they want to be a part. So thank you for supporting that and bringing them back to us. I think that's been a big win and a really good partnership. So thank you. And come out to the events. People love to see you and hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry, for being here today, and I want to follow the Vice Mayor in congratulating you on your tremendous leadership, your willingness to collaborate. I know you've conducted listening tours with public officials as soon as you arrived at the helm, and I think you've done a great job, at least remaining transparent, to use your words, about what's happening, especially with the transformation of the organization itself. So I think based on your report to us and to the public that may be viewing today, the state of the Business Council and the Chamber is good. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
That's great.
It's getting even better.
Right, exactly. And for those who are tuning in, I would highly recommend that they renew or consider a membership with the Business Council Chamber, but also just to see, based on the presentation you've given, the level of programming, the level of social media that you're seeing. I think that all points to very positive indicators of where this organization is heading.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's a lot more that we're talking about down the road. Now we have the Tourism Council counterpart, and have to, I guess, collaborate with this guy right here with the Tourism Council side, but it's all pointing to a very great direction, Terry, and I think you are the perfect person for this position. You are a Williamsburg native, and now you get to do something that I think you said repeatedly that you love.
I love, yeah.
It seems that staff morale has gone up because of the confusion, not necessarily pointed to because of any particular actions, but I think you've been the stabilizing force. So I thank you for that, and making sure that the Chamber and Tourism Alliance remains an integral part of our community.
Great. Thank you so much, Benny.
You're welcome.
And I would just like to say ditto. So thank you for the presentation and for your leadership with the Business Council. And as a participant in the Tables of 8, I want to commend you for that program and look forward to future ones. I thought my Table of 8 was very engaged with a lively conversation, and Carol Sale was a great facilitator. The only thing, and I also think it's really good that there's going to be further engagement with the young professionals, even though I have well aged out of that group. I met with Yuri and someone Friday night, talked about some of their programs, and I think it's nice to recognize and encourage the many young professionals we have here in the community that you don't often see. Everyone thinks that we don't have a lot, but there are. And I would like for you to clarify about a comment you made about businesses and their members being, and the people who work at the business being members, because this one young lady works for William and Mary, and she thought that she had to have her own individual membership.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you very much, first of all. So I think it's really important, and I think that I'll use me for an example. I don't know that I was always clear on this, so it's a message we need to get out loud and clear. So if your business, like the College of William and Mary, if you work for the College of William and Mary, then you automatically are a member if you work there. If you work for Yankee Candle Village and they're a member, you automatically get to come to any events. So we hear it especially from the young professionals, is they don't have a lot of extra revenue or to come to these events, but so many of them aren't even members. So if you work for somebody who's a member, you automatically can come to all the events, and we want you to come. Find something you're interested in or a committee to serve on. So I think that's really an important point that a lot of people aren't aware of. So thank you very much for that.
And that would be something that we can share as we're talking to various individuals. So
yes.
Thank you again, and looking forward to all the great things that are happening.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Terry. So right before moving back to Williamsburg 3 years ago, the first thing I did was join the Chamber as an individual member, and then jumped into the Community Leadership Service Program, which we saw a dot point about the LEAD program, which is every other year. So in the opposing years, you sponsor the CLS, and up here we have 2 graduates.
Right.
My year, I was the only one from the city. I think you had 3. You were one of 3 in your class, so if we can encourage more city residents to participate, that would be great. I also want to do a shout out for the great committees, especially the health committee. And one of the programs that I think really deserves some notice is the Williamsburg Heart Safe Alliance program, where we've got a partnership between the 2 hospitals, the local fire departments, and it's really facilitated through the chamber. If you could maybe talk about how you sort of can bring that together.
Of course. So Heart Safe is a organization that is it's housed at the chamber, but it's really a terrific organization. They give free CPR training, and they work with companies to get AED or become heart safe community. We are a heart safe community, so you can become a heart safe business, and all you have to do is reach out to the chamber. The gentleman who runs it is Connor Wiseman, and he is the executive director. But reach out to me, reach out to anybody at the chamber, and it's just a terrific organization. The fire departments and all the municipality work very closely, and they have just a great partnership. I happened to come in when it was really formed, and just a terrific group of people doing a lot of good stuff, and more stuff to come that's even more exciting with Heart Safe than what we're doing right now. But if you have people on your team that want to get free CPR training or to learn about getting AEDs in your organization, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to get you in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Banez, I echo my colleagues' appreciation for your good work and the work of the Business Council. I'm particularly pleased to hear about the media benefits that you outlined on slide 6, where you promote businesses or give businesses the opportunity to be promoted through the WY Daily and Tide Radio. I think it's a very creative approach, and at the same time supporting another local business by providing them with advertising. The social media highlighting of members, a great idea to provide added value for the memberships that Mr. Zhang would so willingly assist you if you're interested in taking advantage of. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Zhang for being council's liaison. We appreciate your role in that regard. The one slide, I've seen it before, and it confuses me a little bit, so I'm hoping you can help me.
Of course.
Is slide 4. It has a fair bit of information on it. But the part that I get confused about is at the top, it says it's representing 585 businesses and 57 nonprofits. And that comes up to 642. And then I see below that 667 total members, but then below that I see 90 new members and 511 renewing members, but that comes up to 601. So is this just fluctuation in timing where, I know you have a rolling membership?
We do.
And so it can change from month to month and clearly from year to year. Am I interpreting the memberships incorrectly? Or?
No. So I think that's a really good question. So it's 585 businesses, but some of the businesses have more than one location.
Okay.
So I had the same question as you. So we have many people, not many businesses, but there is over more than a dozen businesses that have multiple locations. So that's where the numbers aren't exactly matching up.
Each one of those locations might count as a...
Correct.
Okay.
So it would count as one business, but it would count as more than one member.
Great, that's very helpful.
And I'm sorry. And then like you said, we have a rolling membership, which means everybody renews every month. So if you pay your dues in January, it would count as January, but maybe you were due in October. So that's why it's so important to watch a trend because of the rolling membership. So that's why the numbers don't exactly line up.
And just the last thing I'd like to point out, in case anybody missed it as you were going through the presentation, on slide number 10, there's a very nice picture of Ms. Ramsey at one of the tables of 8, so I didn't want that to be overlooked. So any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you again.
Of course. Can I tell you one other story about the tables of 8? It will be very, very quick. Is that okay? So my tables of 8 was at the Williamsburg Lodge. So our waitress asked us, how could she come to the next tables of 8, which was neat. And then when I was leaving, a gentleman grabbed my coat and he said, can you come here for a second? His wife was rolling her eyes like, oh my gosh. So I was like, I wonder what he's going to ask me. And he said, what are y'all doing? And I told him what we were doing. And he goes, I'm from Wilmington and I'm here for the Antiques Forum. And I'm taking this back to Wilmington to the chamber to have them start this program here. And he said, I've been listening to everything you said for the last hour. So good thing. So thank you very much.
Okay, our last presentation today, and the second under the Tourism Fund, is from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. As an employee of that organization, I will not participate in the discussion here. Or do you have something?
That's correct, but I did want to remind you that the budget is a matter of general public concern, so...
Yes. So when it comes time to vote on the budget, because it is a much broader document that affects the entire community, I do not have a conflict of interest in voting that as long as I disclose my connection to the foundation. But in this case, it's probably not appropriate for me.
That's correct, but that's a decision that you are making, and so far as the budget is a matter of general public concern, there's an exception in the code for that.
Thank you, Michelle.
We're ready. Go ahead. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Mayor Freiling, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you again. It's good to see you all again, and welcome to the new members. Speaking with you in support of our request. My name is Andrea Sardone. I'm the Executive Director of Brand and Marketing at Colonial Williamsburg. And I'm excited to talk to you today about our work in 2019 and our work, and we're eager to work more collaboratively with the newly formed Tourism Council. I'd like to start with a recap of 2018, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jeff Duncan, Vice President of Real Estate from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. 550,171, that is the number of paid ticketed tourists that came through Colonial Williamsburg. We were about 1% under our goal of last year of 554,528. But we did outperform our peers in Virginia, who we just recently learned reported significant losses in visitation. And in fact, some of them, unfortunately, experienced double-digit losses in attendance. So our 1% off the goal, we were quite pleased with that result. Jeff Duncan now will highlight the economic impact these visitors had made in Greater Williamsburg and in the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Andrea. Hot off the press is the 2018 economic impact of Colonial Williamsburg that we will be sending on through Andrew for your perusal. I'll just talk about a couple of highlights that you'll see in that document. $443 million is what we estimate as the economic impact Colonial Williamsburg has on the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. For the greater Williamsburg region, the portion of that number that relates to the greater Williamsburg region is $272 million of economic impact. This also equates to 6,400 jobs within the Commonwealth and 4,600 jobs within the greater Williamsburg region. This does not include a couple of things. Because these funds don't flow directly through Colonial Williamsburg. So the economic impact of Merchant Square and all the sales that happen in Merchant Square, and the economic impact of the sales that flow through Colonial Williamsburg's retail shops that we outsourced last year. So because those funds don't flow directly through our bank, we don't include those numbers in this number that I presented. However, the economic impact of those two entities equates probably to another $150 million within the state of Virginia. This slide represents payments to the city and the state by Colonial Williamsburg and collections of sales tax from Colonial Williamsburg customers. $3.9 million in sales tax was remitted to the state and the city for rooms, meals, and the city portion of state sales tax. And Colonial Williamsburg paid $2.2 million directly to the city in real estate and property taxes. Looking at the economic impact of everything that flowed through Colonial Williamsburg and both the direct and the indirect impact of those funds, we estimate that $8.9 million was paid to the Commonwealth of Virginia in state sales tax, and we estimate that $9.7 million was paid to through the greater Williamsburg region for room, meals, and sales taxes. Again, you'll see all of that in the document that we will distribute probably tomorrow when we get back to the office. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Jeff. We'll certainly be able to take questions at the end there. The other item I'd like to also just sort of bring to your attention is that the County of Williamsburg, we do support the greater community. We do believe in giving back as one of the area's largest employers. We believe in being good neighbors and good partners in the community. We contribute to the community, spending $200,000 approximately on grand illumination and the July 4th fireworks and paid programming. We subsidize annual passes to a variety of groups, including the military, William and Mary, and residents of Williamsburg and surrounding areas with our Good Neighbor Pass program. We also partner with several organizations, such as Williamsburg Community Foundation, NAACP, and Act So, and support numerous events every year, among them the biannual naturalization ceremonies, which we very much enjoy doing. What I'd like to do now is take you through our efforts for 2019 and what we did to set us up for that. We partnered with an agency last year called Ogilvy, formerly Ogilvy and Mather, and we asked them for help on three things. To help us understand how familiar people are with Colonial Williamsburg, what people think and feel about us, and how big the market is for Colonial Williamsburg. We used market research to help us find the answers. We conducted an attitude awareness and usage study last summer. It's a benchmark study to gauge exactly that, the awareness of CW, how people feel about us, and how they consume us. We surveyed approximately 2,600 people from New York to Georgia, and that's the highlighted portion on the map there. The group consisted of prospective visitors recruited by the survey company, current visitors, and lapsed visitors. And lapsed visitors was defined as someone who had not been to Colonial Williamsburg or the area for at least 5 years. The study revealed several significant insights, and I want to share just a couple with you. So insight number one, people really like Colonial Williamsburg. In terms of awareness, favorability, and likelihood to visit, we are the strongest in the category of historical destinations, which includes Monticello, Mount Vernon, and the Biltmore, among others. As a destination, our category, historical destinations, ranks fourth behind beaches, large cities, and cruises, and we edge out theme parks and amusement parks. And this may not come as any surprise to anybody that's ever taken a vacation or had to pay for it, but vacationers do know what they want. They want value. It doesn't need to be cheap, but they want to make sure it's worth their money and a lot of times worth their time, which is actually considered more precious. They want to have fun. They want to relax by the pool, a carriage ride, down Dog Street, or maybe at a spa. And then they want to have fun. And this is where we have something of a challenge, given our educational mission. However, our research tells us that when people come to Colonial Williamsburg for the first time, they are pleasantly surprised that they had so much fun. And we usually get them to come back. We are encouraged by the Destinations campaign and believe we can dovetail our efforts with them quite effectively. The Fun Expected campaign, we will leverage and draft off of it. We will use our resources to showcase the fun of Colonial Williamsburg. We believe the destination message, step back in time and explore history in a fun, totally unexpected way, is a great stepping off point for us. As we have in the past, we will continue to share assets, market research, and collaborate even more closely to drive more vacationers into the historic Triangle. The second question we asked Ogilvy was to help us in articulating our position in the minds of consumers. And this is a fundamental activity of marketing. We were deliberate in our development of the brand positions we tested. We started last fall with several CW stakeholder interviews and workshops. In the spring, we conducted an ethnographic study. We recruited about 7 families, couples, and groups at our visitor center in early April, and we followed them around and just got their feedback of their experience. We reviewed years of market research and data to help better understand the customer. So we developed and tested 3 positions, and one emerged as the most compelling, believable, and capable of driving consideration to visit. The Human Connector brand position was the most effective in motivating the survey respondents to consider visiting. It addresses a common theme of feeling that we all have, a feeling disconnected from each other and our families and our friends due to our busy schedules, lives, and societal pressures. So what does this mean? This means we will promise people a dynamic experience that reconnects them to their family and their friends. We'll immerse them in a time gone by, seen in a new light through the eyes of those around you. Together, they'll discover a place that is unique, full of real-time interactions with people, places, and programs that make history come alive. We believe fun, relaxation, and value can fit easily under this umbrella and tie into our mission. And recently we tested this invitation, if you will, with a group, and that's one thing that we are doing much more intentionally this year, is doing a lot of testing with focus groups, quantitative surveys, just to make sure that nothing is, that we're not missing something. So you'll see almost everything I put up here we've tested with a focus group or through a quantitative survey. So this is what our brand structure looks like. Colonial Williamsburg is the brand. It's at the top. We have a positioning of Human Connector. And then all of our business lines, hospitality, retail, historic area, art museums, and development, will fall under that. So this is a very unified way to go out to the market to tell people what Colonial Williamsburg is and what its value is. So over time, our goal will be for people to, when they think of CW, they think that, oh, that's the place where I can go and connect with my family or my friends. Takes a while, but that's what we're beginning to do. The second question, or the last question I asked Ogilvy to help us understand, is the potential size of the market. If we believed our critics who say that nobody likes history, our audience is aging, we should probably, and people have no history in visiting, no interest in history or visiting us, we should probably close our doors. But our research suggests the opposite. After seeing the Human Connector positioning, we saw a very promising picture about market size. So, in the New York to Georgia footprint, there are 19 million people who would seriously consider coming to Colonial Williamsburg or the Greater Williamsburg Historic Triangle for a vacation once they saw that Human Connector positioning. We will use this data to work with the destination as much as we can to capture as many of those people as possible to drive them into our area. This very large group has certain behaviors, and what's interesting is that they span different generations. They're not totally isolated to one age group or another. They're family-oriented. They want a vacation that the whole family can enjoy. They believe connections are critical. They like to explore and be exposed to different ideas and cultures. They do want to have fun and relaxation. They are active on social media if they like it or if they don't like it, unfortunately. And significantly for us, they're all history lovers. They believe there's still a lot to learn about the past and like to see historical sites while on vacation. And that's significant for us because it refutes years of sort of the the sort of common wisdom or conventional wisdom that people aren't interested in history. They're just interested in getting history in a different, more entertaining way. So these characteristics we call psychographics. So we are not really going to be tied to any one age group when we market to them. This allows us to become more multi-generational. So you'll see we want to bring entire families, several generations of families. And a lot of the pattern that we see is that people came here as children, and now they're bringing their children back, and we are going to strongly encourage them to bring their parents back, and so to continue that family tradition of Colonial Williamsburg. This is one of my favorite slides, and it talks about market share. At the beginning of the survey of the 2,600 people that we surveyed, they were asked to choose one historic destination to go on vacation, if they would go. 32% selected Colonial Williamsburg, and this was at the beginning of the survey. After they were shown the human connector positioning, we shot up to 51%, which the firm that conducted the polling says it's one of the highest jumps they've ever seen on a before and after. The competitors, the Biltmore, Monticello, Mount Vernon, others lost market share. So we stole some people, especially from the Biltmore. So this gives us confidence as we move into 2019. And we're looking at 2026, which is the 250th of the United States, as another sort of opportunity to really set that high water mark as we did during the bicentennial. So we really want to try to get as much as that 19% growth as possible. And our goal is to establish CW as the touchstone for those who cherish life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So our work with Ogilvy is complete, and we are doing much more with less and in-house. And one of the things that makes me really confident is our ability to reach more people effectively. Our CFO asked us to do an analysis on our marketing spend, and we partnered with a company called Enterprise Spectrum to help us understand the full impact of our marketing spend and identify areas for improvement. They did an econometric analysis, and I cannot explain what that means. It's just lots of numbers, pretty heavy stuff. And very fortunately, it revealed that our CWF marketing department is generating a positive return on the marketing investment, which includes the city's contribution. So this chart shows about 3 years of analysis, and you'll notice that we've gone from 1.5 to 2. So we are returning 2 to 1 as of last year. So we are looking at other ways to grow that as well. We want to try to force more out than we put in, and I'm very confident about this. It's one of those things where the comments marketing is you don't know what works. It's half right, but you don't know which half is working. So we are getting much smarter. We have a dashboard that we work with. We measure every dollar, and it's actually it's really exciting to watch the efforts pay off for us. So that concludes my comments today. Thank you very much for having me back, and also thank you for your continued support of Colonial Williamsburg. I and Jeff will be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Jeff, for being here today and presenting on Colonial Williamsburg's presentation on the marketing ROI. First, a quick comment. I do think history is extremely important. Maybe this is because I'm a law student, and a lot of our law is rooted in historical context, depending who you ask as well. But largely, a lot of the common law is rooted in history. So I have a deep appreciation for everything that you guys have done, especially in what some critics would say a challenging time, but I think you've taken the challenge quite well, the challenge mental. In terms of, for the third slide, talking about the 2018 economic impact, I'm just curious, for the $443 million that you said in terms of providing the economic impact to the Commonwealth, are those numbers coming from the Virginia Tourism Corporation, or where is the source for that particular number?
Those are our calculations based on years of analysis of
Understood.
of the churn that happens within the Virginia and the local economy based on a dollar spent.
Okay.
And it's normally, typically about 2.7 times a dollar gets spent and churns through the economy.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to make sure because I know the VTC, the Virginia Tourism Corporation, also calculates some of these economic impacts as well. Real quick question in terms for the city manager. Based on, so for the budget proposal that we've had in previous years, we've given what, $1.5 million? $1.3 million, apologies. $1.3 million to Colonial Williamsburg. Now, pursuant to Senate Bill 942, was this one of the maintenance of effort fund requirements that we have to do for our budget in terms of?
One of the original drafts of the legislation included it in that way, but the final draft that was approved did not.
Right, and I just wanted to make sure that the public understood that. So largely, council could, this is one of the areas where council could decide on the funding.
That's right.
So could you speak a little bit more, given the Tourism Council and the advent of it? It's seen a lot more marketing dollars, and obviously there's the previous iteration with the Williamsburg Area Destination Marketing Organization. Just for the public's benefit, can you explain a little bit how the two are different? Because you're asking council with this funding request that you included in the presentation and the public documents, just to have a clearer sense, can you explain a little bit more of how it works?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. A destination marketing organization, a DMO, is charged with, just driving awareness and excitement to a certain area, and a fairly broad area. What we need to do at Colonial Williamsburg, and what other organizations need to do, is now take that interest and now pull them into Colonial Williamsburg, because they have choices. So that's the difference. I mean, for many years, I think Colonial Williamsburg acted in some ways as a DMO, because we just had the largest spend, we were a larger organization. Now I think we are starting to right-size the organization, and we're starting to get the order in the right way, that it is now people choose a destination, and in fact our research shows that 92% of people who take vacations choose a destination first. Then they choose, I'm thinking, the hotel that they stay in, and then the activities that they'll do and where they'll eat. So that sort of destination, and one of the challenges that we've had with Colonial Williamsburg is, we had to convince people to come to Williamsburg first, then be very careful to convince people to come and stay at a hotel in Williamsburg, not necessarily a Colonial Williamsburg hotel, because everybody had to be, because we were taking destination money. Now I think the destination certainly will be much more heavily funded, and it should be, and then we will just take that, we will just try to pull a subset into the Colonial Williamsburg guest experience. So that's the difference.
So this will largely give a lot more dollars dedicated to the marketing campaigns that benefit Colonial Williamsburg and other museums that are incorporating the region, but also the city's contribution for the request goes directly to the marketing budget for Colonial Williamsburg.
Directly to the marketing budget for Colonial Williamsburg, which, we continue to, and we're leveraging our advertising spend with the destination so that we're not overlapping. So we're trying to sort of expand that circle as well.
Gotcha, and thank you for making that clear. I just wanted to leave one last highlight. Thank you for providing so much in-depth information that's backed by data. I think that's very persuasive to be able to see that evidence back up the dollars that we spend, and obviously Colonial Williamsburg being one of our largest entities here in Williamsburg and property owners, obviously there is a direct correlation with the economic impact that comes to the city there too. I just wanted to highlight one more slide in terms of community engagement. You had mentioned some organizations. I just wanted to thank your organization for also partnering up with Old Town Medical Center, providing the healthcare services, extending it to your employees. I know that's been an important collaboration, and I'm glad we've been able to see fruition with that. And because of that collaboration, and also with our public schools, we've been able to also receive outside funding to be able to buttress some of the increased services too. So I just want to leave that. Thank you very much for being here today, and I appreciate your presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Ted, do you have some questions?
Sure. The you're talking about other organizations and how their visitation's gone down. We've seen success at the Mariners Museum, especially for the younger generations, to see the value in what they're displaying and educating there. All for admissions price of $1. What's your takeaway from their success, and is there any relevance to Colonial Williamsburg?
I have not studied the $1 phenomenon at the Mariners Museum other than to know that they're doing it. I don't know. All I've heard is it's a success. I'm really not quite sure what their success metric is. Is it more people coming in the door? So I'm really not sure what that success metric is. I can tell you that, we do talk a lot about ticket pricing, and it's one of those things that we're actually going to be studying a lot more this coming year, because we get a lot of feedback. Some people say it's too expensive. Some people say I would have paid twice as much. So we actually really need to do a study there. I would never encourage to go to $1 at Colonial Williamsburg unless we got some sort of funding mechanism. It's simply not feasible to drive the prices down that much. You also run into a problem when you get into a price war, or you start messing around with price. There's no place else to go. Then you're free, and then you have some value perception problems. People do convey cost and certain value. I can say that our I think $40.99 is our day pass, and $60.99 is an annual pass and Good Neighbor Pass. So residents of Williamsburg and other zip codes can get it for $10. So we actually have, I think, some fairly effective price points. The value that imparts to the community, you think about our trades, they're world-class craftsmen. These are people that are known throughout the world. We have 2 art museums. So I think we are bringing a lot of value to people in that price tag. But, we've noticed, and we've also seen research where lowering prices does not really have the effect that people think. And so we work with a woman named Colleen Dillenschneider, who does this impact study, and it's 224 visitor-serving organizations, so museums, cultural initiatives, and she's got some pretty extensive survey on the effects of lowering prices, and it, in many cases, has the absolute opposite effect, that people it doesn't drive people in. Free admission, what happens when people get free admission is they just want more free things. And so that's kind of where I come down on it. I commend them to be able to do that, and hope that they are continuing to be successful, whatever that metric is for them.
So following up on free admission, I think everybody agrees that the $10 Good Neighborhood Pass is a great value for citizens. Last year, when Mitchell Reese gave his presentation to the Neighborhood Council, basically was what he had given to the Board of Trustees several months before, he actually told the Neighborhood Council that he thought that Good Neighbor Pass should be free. Did you overrule him?
No, I don't overrule him. That's what he said. He's probably right. That's certainly, I think it's great value. Right now it's $10. We're promoting it at a $10 price point. If Mitchell said he wants to make it free, so be it. I'm not going to argue with him. So.
Yeah. Talking about fireworks, so I think it was good that you showed the value of the investment of $200,000 for fireworks, because in many other communities, that is something that would have been funded and managed by either the local Chamber of Commerce or the local municipality. So that is a good example of where you're actually doing something for the benefit that the city doesn't have to get involved in.
Yes, and Jeff might be able to help me a little bit more with that. It's not just the cost of the fireworks, which I think are somewhat picayune when compared to security. The additional services. I know that, all of the salaried personnel do work extra shift for that as well. So I do think that there's a lot more cost beyond the fireworks that's included in that number. And that number is for both July 4th and Grand Illumination. So it's something that we enjoy doing, but it does cost the foundation, significantly. Jeff, do you have anything else to add? Yeah. But we know it's a great economic driver for our merchants in Merchant Square and surrounding areas.
The it was great to hear about the economic success of Merchant Square. We talked a year ago about needing to maintain the parking lot behind Barnes & Noble, and you were going to ask CW to budget for that. And based on how it looks now, I can't really see that anything's been done to maintain that parking lot.
Correct.
Is there something in what the city's going to give you?
We are budgeting for 2019 and beyond for parking lot repairs. That's one of the things also we're submitting an application through the Tourism Development Fund application process for parking lot improvements just to make the general downtown area much more attractive. So that I think that kind of thing helps drive folks to downtown a little bit more.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have a few comments as far as the comment about the grand illumination and 4th of July fireworks. I agree. Everyone really enjoys them, but I also want to give a shout out to our police and fire because I think that the staffing from the city is instrumental in the success of those two events. And of the number of people that come to those events, I would say a large percentage of them come from outside of Williamsburg as well. Just in my neighborhood, there's lots of cars and people walking throughout. And at the very beginning of the presentation, you talked about the number of paid visitors at 550,000. And what do you think is sustainable as a goal for Colonial Williamsburg in next few years and 10 years down the road?
Thank you, Councilman Ramsey. I want to show you, it's not part of the presentation, but I brought along just in case we got to this question. So just a little bit of detail on how I got to the 19 million or how we got to the 19 million. So New York to Georgia, approximately 75.9 million people that were 18 and older, a decision maker in taking a vacation, and would consider going to a historical destination. When the group that we tested, the 2,600, we found an incidence rate of about 48% that they were seriously planning a vacation in the next 18 months and would go to a historical destination. When we showed them that positioning, so this company that did this for us started out as a political polling company, and politicians divide into base, swing, and opposition. So they showed the positioning, and the numbers came out where we had a base of 839,000 that said, I'll come to Colonial Williamsburg no matter what you guys do, because I just love it so much. We had an opposition of about 18 million, 17.9 million that said, I don't care what you do, I'm never coming to Colonial Williamsburg. And then we had this swing in the middle of 17.936. So we added those two together to get the 19. I showed you the slide to answer your question, 839,000. So that number is about 18 months worth of our paid visitation. If you take 500 to 600,000 yearly and for 18 months. I think we can probably get close to the 600,000. We are, like our marketing department, we're getting smarter, we've got better research, and now with the destination efforts, I think it's really I think we'll be able to increase that number to 600,000. The years of 1 million visitors, I don't think is going to be in our sights for a while. I think 2026 for the 250th, I think we need to shoot for the stars on that and really try to get as many of those. I mean, we could get 750 maybe. I would love to see that. I would love to see more, obviously. But I think, somewhere in the 500 to 600, we're at 550 now. I can see 600,000, in my lifetime. So I think that's probably a good steady state. I can't remember the numbers because I know we've done a model of this, of what happens at the 600, the 650. I could probably get that to you. So we've looked at models for that, and that's where Enterprise Spectrum is helping us a lot with, okay, if you spend an additional $1 million, how many more people do you think you could get? What's your business as usual? How many more people could you estimate? Eventually, we want to get to what's called a cost of customer acquisition. So Mitchell can say, okay, I want 2 million people here, and I can go back and tell him, okay, well, I need $100 million. So hope that's a long answer to your question, but I think around 600 would be a good number to sort of start really sort of focusing on as a steady state.
And be sustainable then, too. And as far as the real estate and property taxes, you mentioned that are paid $2.2 million, I think. There's just for the public's information, that's paid on certain aspects of Colonial Williamsburg, correct? So that the historic versus the hospitality and...
Those are what I call real estate taxes. Some of them may be called service fees, but it's the assessments by the city on all of the property that's owned by Colonial Williamsburg in the city. So we pay something on everything, but we don't pay the full property tax rate on the not-for-profit. We pay something like 20% of the normal rate. But we do pay something on everything.
And as far as ticket pricing, I know you said that you all were looking at different things, and I've been a proponent of being able to do online purchasing, point of sale, if that's the right word, so that if someone shows up at the Governor's Palace and wants to buy a ticket there, that they can. Is that something in the future?
Definitely is.
Near future?
I hope very near future. We were just actually talking about this last week. The issue with that in the historic area is, because we actually tried this, we had scanners and we were scanning, and that wasn't period specific, and it was very hard to get people to sort of, okay, we want to immerse people in an 18th century experience, and now we're using electronic scanners. They're also somewhat problematic because of the lack of ubiquitous Wi-Fi connectivity. So sometimes the scanners didn't work. So the good news is our IT department, so that was a few years ago, our IT department is actively investigating this. There's been a lot of technology innovations since we tried this a few years ago. But personally, I believe we absolutely have to do something like that to get a full understanding of what, the value of a customer or the value that they're getting, and then also what people are doing. Right now with an annual pass or a Good Neighbor Pass, we know that you showed up at least once. We're not quite sure what you did after that. And we would really like to know that, not to be big brother-ish, but just to understand what people are enjoying, what they're responding to. We do have an app that does allow some online purchasing. And I can tell you it's not perfect yet, again, for Wi-Fi connectivity, that sort of thing. But it is definitely something, in fact, our Vice President for Core Operations, we just had a meeting last week, and we're putting together little committees to actually look at pricing of products, the logistics of different online sales or point-of-sale purchase. So that's coming.
Okay.
Thank you for being patient with us.
Well, I just know that, whenever I go to anything in Merchant Square area, all of the vendors have the little square devices.
Yep.
And as far as immersion in the Colonial area, I don't think people would give up air conditioning in the buildings to stay, in the 18th century. So I think they'd be okay with scanners.
I've said the same thing.
They don't have to check their phones at the door, so everyone takes them with them. So, Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Tracy, I had one question, if it's all right.
Oh, yes.
On your final slide, you were showing the return on investment, but I don't know if you said it, maybe you did and I missed it. What's the total investment by Colonial Williamsburg in marketing, including the city's share?
Ooh, I think last year it was I've got to add these budgets up. I think we're around 2.7, 2.8 million total.
The reason I ask is because that's a question that we frequently get.
Mm-hmm.
Is, historically the city has provided 1.3 in all of those years, and we are not armed with the answer of what you're matching our investment with. So thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our presentations for this afternoon. Do we have any other business, Mr. Trivett?
No, sir.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Burcham?
Mr. Maslin?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Freiling,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Mr. Zhang.
Aye.
We're adjourned.